Hello, welcome once again to the Morning Serve with thanks to Emirates. I'm Nick McArdle. Sam Stosur joining us today. Sam, just have a look at this. Melbourne turning on a show.
Absolutely beautiful. What a day for tennis.
Yeah, it's the middle weekend. It's the best weekend for some of the Australian Open. Let's have a look at what is on today's show, this edition of the Morning Serve. We're going to talk about Novak. A little bit of a chip on Novak's shoulder. Is he using that for motivation, along with having Sir Andy as his coach this year? ANDREEVA v SABALENKA. We're going to track MIRRA's progress throughout the tournament and throughout the year. And tennis's power couple, Stefanos Tsitsipas and Paula Badosa. So a whole lot to get through today. But first up, Sam, Novak Djokovic. If you accept that perhaps he's not the player that he was, still a hell of a player and still beating anyone on his day, what's he using to get this edge, to stay in the hunt and to stay hungry?
Yeah, I feel a little bit harsh talking about Novak quite like that, because obviously he's still a phenomenal player. But look, I think, he's been the best at pulling out every single trick in his bag throughout his whole career, whether it's been more mentally or physically or taking care of his diet or working on his game, changing technique. He has done absolutely everything to get himself into the position that he is arguably the greatest ever.
A few people this tournament talking about his interaction with the crowd. Now, he's always going to have parts of the crowd on his side, but he's always going to have parts of the crowd that are against him. A lot of Aussies love to hate Novak Djokovic. He seems to be using that as fuel this time.
Yeah, I think it's been, hasn't been hidden in the past when someone might be heckling him in the crowd a little bit. He'll give it back and kind of use that as that motivation to kind of get over the line and prove that he was the best player out on the court or is the best, in general. So I think he can go that way, but I still think everyone still loves to be loved. And if there's any positivity out there, he's certainly going to try and use that as well.
The bad guy thing, though, whether he's been complicit in painting himself as the bad guy here over the years, or whether maybe some Australians have just adopted him as such, sometimes he can lean into that when he needs to. Oh,
without a doubt. I'm sure that it has helped him, win numerous matches, not just here, but probably around the world over the course of his career. So, he will find anything that can give him an edge, whether it's maybe for a point or a game, or then ultimately the match, and shaking hands at the end and saying, well, I'm in the next round and you're not.
When a player reaches this stage of his career, and let's accept he's in the latter part of his career, and maybe he's getting everything he can out of his body and out of his game, what are the tangibles that in your mind that you can go to, and how much do they count on the court?
Look, I think against the majority of the players in the draw, he's still going to be, he's still got that aura and, oh my gosh, I'm playing Novak Djokovic in the next round. How can I possibly get through him? And I think at Grand Slams, where it is best of 5, that is a different prospect than a normal tour event at best of 3. So to beat Novak over best of 5, you have to play very, very well for a very long time, potentially. Whereas, normal tournament, you could maybe scrap it out in an hour and a half at best of 3 sets. So I think the mountain is there still to climb for the majority of players in the draw. But obviously now we have Sinner and Alcaraz and some of those guys who have, arguably their level is better day in, day out now. They're obviously a lot younger and they're vying to do exactly the same thing that he's done. So I think it a little bit depends on who his opponent is.
All right, well, staying on Novak Djokovic, he's got Andy Murray in his court this year. Were you surprised that Andy Murray, where he was and who he is in the game, has said, yeah, okay, I'll coach Novak Djokovic? It was a bit strange.
No, absolutely. I was surprised. I think everyone's surprised. I think even Andy was surprised that A, he got the call, and then B actually said yes. So look, I don't know how long the arrangement's for, or what stipulates whether it keeps going or anything like that. But I think obviously the huge, positive in having someone like Andy in his corner is he knows what it's like to win these tournaments. He knows what it takes. He knows how to play the best players in the world. He knows about the recovery and managing yourself. He knows everything about it. So if, again, talk about 1%ers, if Andy might have one little tidbit that helped him and he can pass it on to Novak now as opposed to, some of his previous coaches, then who knows, it might make the difference for him to keep going.
That's the other thing too. You talk to people about Andy Murray and they say he's a bit of a tennis nerd.
Yeah.
Like if there is a 1% or even a 0.5% He's going to notice it. He'll find it.
Oh, without a doubt. He's got an incredible tennis mind. We've seen him work through, lots of matches of his own. So, and he would know Novak's game inside out from all the times that they've played each other. So I think Andy's there to do a good job. Obviously, there's actually a bit of pressure too, because if you don't, well, he's not going to win Grand Slams. That's not so great. But I tell you, I saw Andy walking through the corridors the other day with all of Novak's rackets, taking them to the stringer. Like, he's taking this job very seriously. You don't, he wants to tick every single box he possibly can, I'm sure.
The other thing that's been really interesting to notice, and that is when Goran Ivanisevic was Novak's coach, often the interaction would be quite adversarial. They'd just sort of be at each other, particularly Novak towards Goran, where so far, and we're only early days, but so far it seems to be a little more passive. There's adult conversations happening, quite sort of normal conversations.
Yeah, I mean, also he hasn't been under too much pressure so far either.
Right.
So we're seeing, and Andy didn't mind giving it to his coaching box either. So I don't know, I wonder if being in the coaching pod down on the court will change that as well. Sometimes when they're up high, a little bit further away, you can kind of yell and get into it, and doesn't maybe seem quite so aggressive as if they were down on court level doing it. So we'll see how the coaching pod plays out for Novak and Andy.
Just in a more general sense, are you surprised, given the proximity of coaches to players at this tournament, that we haven't seen more fireworks?
Well, I don't know. I guess, again, I think it depends a lot on the player. I've seen a couple of them give a little fist pump, so that's been nice. There's been a nice little interaction, but we'll see when the anxiety rises, the stress gets there in the later part of the tournament, whether we see any of those fireworks.
All right, particularly with reference to Sir Andy and Novak Djokovic. Let's have a look at today's Emirates flight plan, see what's on the menu, and have a look at these matches. Which one are you picking out there as a must-watch?
Well, I think GUAFF and BENCIC. I mean, they're all phenomenal, going to potentially matchups, but I think GUAFF and BENCIC will be exciting. GUAFF's been in really great form, so far this tournament, cruising really, and then BENCIC got over Osaka yesterday. Yes, there was that injury, but winning that first set and getting over the line, just recently coming back as well from having a child, so pretty good story for her, only a few months back.
It is a good story, but do you feel like we haven't quite seen enough, and Belinda Bencic did obviously play, I think, United Cup, didn't she, before the Australian Open? Have you seen enough to get a form line there, to get a handle on exactly where she is?
Well, maybe not, but we know that she's been able to bring a huge level in the past, Olympic medalist, and won multiple tournaments on tour. So again, it's very early days for her coming back from becoming a mother. But yeah, Coco, I think, is obviously one of the favourites for the tournament. So I think it's going to be a tough ask, but I think the calibre of Bencic and what she's able to produce could be an exciting one.
Another huge match coming up, MIRRA ANDREEVA against Aryna Sabalenka, and MIRRA ANDREEVA has moved past this teenager that we all talked about with having this huge potential, of which of course she still does, but now there's a little bit of expectation on her as well. Has she got the game to trouble the two-time Australian Open champion?
Again, it's a tough ask for sure, but I think she's going to be top 10 by the end of this year. I think she's continually improving. Her game is getting better. Each shot has got more pace, more spin. Her movement will get better as she gets stronger and obviously keeps developing. She is still so young, and what she's been able to achieve has been absolutely incredible. So obviously now the rest of the tour are going to know her game a little bit more than what they did a year or two ago, start picking it apart a little bit. So it is always hard the second, third year to keep creating that, but I think she's got the goods.
Are you surprised at how well she has gone with that weight of expectation? Because like she was the next big, or is the next big thing, but has been for so long now, that she has actually continued to be able to deliver on that? Yeah,
look, I think it seems to be very much about the tennis. You don't see too much about off-court things or outside distractions or the like. So it seems like she's very focused on her tennis. I really like the fact that last year she hired Conchita Martinez as her coach. Obviously, former Grand Slam champion, world #1, knows everything about the tour, and for someone young coming up who's got to learn not just about winning matches and hitting forehands and backhands and all that stuff, but how to manage yourself, create a good schedule, all the other things in the background that often don't get talked about. I think Conchi's really great for that.
And if MIRRA was to challenge for a slam this year, which one do you think it might be?
Oh, geez. Perhaps, well, I don't know. I mean, like her game, she can sort of adapt it on any surface, but I don't know if she's quite there to win a slam this year yet, but she's a great hardcourt player. I've seen her do well. Well, we've seen her make 4th round at French and Wimbledon, so I'm going to sit on the fence.
Okay. That's fine. Maybe she might, maybe she might not. And if you were in the coach's box and you're formulating that game plan to take on Sabalenka, what are you telling her to do?
Well, I think a lot's going to come down to the serve and return. I think she has to serve a high percentage of first serve. She's got a good first serve. She has to use it aggressively, I think, to try and get on top of the points early so that she's not then on the back foot, and something that is very tough to do against Sabalenka. We saw Sabalenka in her previous round go to the kick serve a lot more than what she has previously. I think MIRRA needs to be able to read that and see, okay, well, has she changed her serving tactics? Because now I need to try and get on the front foot more. So I think a lot comes down to the first strike, first 2 balls of the rally. If she can get on top there, move Sabalenka around a bit, she could have a chance.
Keep an eye out for that one right here on 9. Let's talk a bit of, well, they're the glamour couple of tennis, aren't they? Can we call them the glamour couple?
Would Alex and Katie have something to say about that?
Maybe they're another glamour couple. It's full of glamour couples. But Paola Badoza and Stefanos Tsitsipas, they've had very different Australian Open experiences in 2025.
Yeah, they certainly have. I think Tsitsipas has sort of struggled all summer at the moment, hasn't been able to find his form, but now he's able to support his girlfriend, partner, who has been playing exceptionally well. So, look, I'm sure it's nice for them to be able to still be here, and he's sticking around, it seems, to be able to support her, which is nice.
She's a really great story. Like she, with stress fractures in her back, she was contemplating retirement, and here she is back to almost her best. As a former world number 4, I think she reached at one point. That is an incredible story to see her back and playing at this level.
Oh, absolutely. She was still struggling this time last year. It really wasn't until after French Open, maybe even Wimbledon, where she really found that form again that took her right to the top of the sport. So she's won titles at the end of the year, went deep in some really big tournaments, and I think she's been able to continue that through the off season. She started out this tournament pretty well, serves on fire, forehands big. She's going to be tough.
So back on the relationship side of things, how does that help, or does it help? Does it perhaps hinder? I mean, what's your take on that?
Well, it's certainly helping her. I don't know whether the relationship's anything to do with Stefanos, but look, I think it's nice. I think it's nice to be able to travel with someone other than your coach and trainer and your actual tennis team. Obviously, they know what it takes, and there's going to be weeks where they don't see each other with their schedules, but when it can come together, I'm sure they really enjoy it. And yeah, they can talk tennis or not talk tennis. Doesn't really matter. They know what it's all about, and they seem to have a good time, so that's lovely. Just
talk a bit more about that, because I think tennis fans look at the life, and you lived this life for a long time, and think that's pretty glamorous, you know, 5-star hotels and, you know, business class around. I mean, you might have travelled first class, I don't know, but business class around the world. You know, going to terrific places, and you get spoiled at a lot of these events. But is it as glamorous, and is it important, or how important is it to just have that +1 sometimes? Yeah, look, I think depends what your name is and what your ranking is for how glamorous it is. So I've seen their Instagram. It looks like they're not doing okay. Yeah, they're doing all right. So they do it in style. But look, it's not, even with that though, if you're by yourself all the time, it can be lonely. You're in a different city every week. So, you know, there's very tough parts to what the players do and you know, the life and everything. But yeah, there's obviously some wonderful perks, but like, the players lower ranked aren't quite living that same life yet. No, I get that. I do get that. And the other thing about these two, and it's almost like sweet in a way to see it happen, but he was in the player's box, and she was on court, and she was getting a bit wound up. She was a bit stressed about what was happening in the match. He just said, settle down. Yeah, you know, it's all okay. Do you like seeing that?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think obviously he's going to have a huge influence on her, so and vice versa if it was the other way around. So if he can kind of just tell her to calm down a bit, I think it's kind of a funny thing for Stefano. Maybe he could use some of his own advice sometimes on the court, but it seems to be working for them. And yeah, I think, you know, wherever you get that support from, if it's in a positive way, then that's exactly what you need.
So how much, and this is difficult for anyone from the outside to say, but how much could you sheet home her improvement and her resurgence to perhaps his influence?
I don't know. Who knows? Yeah. Who knows? I mean, I think you ask one person, they'll say heaps. You ask another person who might be more on the coach's side who's helping out. Maybe he's done a little bit more. Maybe she's just worked it out too. So I think it's a real team effort, I'm sure. But yeah, whatever the case, she's almost back to, or probably back to where she once was before those injuries, which is nice. So you never want to see anybody sort of struggling, at least because their body's breaking down. So to have her back, she's good for the sport.
Indeed. Sam, thanks once again.
Thank you.
All right, and thanks for your company right here on The Morning Serve.
Wide World of Sports on YouTube is your home of the tennis this summer.
With highlights of the best matches of the summer of tennis, the on-court interviews and every day with the morning serve, you'll be ahead of the game.
So click that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing this summer.